gentlemen, we will be starting now. If you can kindly take your seats, we will be commencing now. Good evening and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for coming through to the book launch of In Search of Who We Are, authored by Muhammad Yusuf Minty and published by the Project Justice Trust as well as Awqaf South Africa. Mr. Inver Surti, the former Deputy Minister of Basic Education, he heads up the Project Justice Trust, which has also published a series of books. Awqaf is quite involved in this project as well, and in the business of publishing books. Awqaf has produced, as part of its Leaders and Legacy series, we have published a series of books, including the Twanguru book, as well as the Sheikh Abu Bakr book, Effendi book, and that was authored by Shafiq Morton. Tonight is a celebration of telling our oral history and stories through books. Awqaf SA encourages this and has been involved in lots of events like this, book launches. We've been at book expos, and we encourage budding authors to pen their stories. And just to let you know that this book is available. It is on sale. You can get it today at the book launch. It costs 250 Rand. You can go to Mr. Sali. You can get your copy of the book. And Mr. Minty will be signing it and personalizing it with a message here for you. We are live streaming this book launch. It is hosted via Awqaf's YouTube page. For those tuning in, the book is available at Exclusive Books as well as clarkbookshop.co.za. So for our online audience, feel free to pose your feedback, your questions, and we will entertain these during the Q&A session. This will be a two-way conversation, a very interactive session. So feel free to have your questions ready. We need your interaction. We have lots of authors. We have lots of publishers. We have lots of academics, family members, artists, the likes. We really would appreciate your feedback. So I'm not going to be doing much of the talking. Shafiq Morton will be doing that. He'll be in conversation with the author. Shafiq Morton, by way of introduction, is an award-winning photojournalist and radio presenter. He's a recipient of 2 Vodacom Awards. He has received the 2012 Awqaf SA Award for his contribution to community media. In 2020, his book, Imtiaz Suleiman and the Gift of the Givers, A Mercy to All, won the African Awards. He penned several other books, and his latest book is on Sheikh Abu Bakr Effendi. This is a book published by Awqaf South Africa. Get your copy at Exclusive Books or on Take a Lot. The bestseller is the Twanguru book. If you need a copy of that book that tells the story of the early Muslims here at the Cape, get your copy on Take a Lot. So it's over to Shafiq Morton.
Advertising, can everybody hear me clearly? That's the first thing. All right, lots of yeses. Good evening, assalamu alaikum, everybody who's present here. Thank you for coming to this book launch. I think the food is free, so carry on eating. We'll just suffer in silence while we do the sort of the cabaret, as it were. To introduce this book, there are 2 authors that I know that have got their initials on the cover. There's a J.K. Rowling who's fairly unknown, and then you've got M.Y. Minty, who is quite well known.
In the right circles.
Right, in the right circles. But of course, this evening we're going to be talking about this particular book, and that's for people who are online so they can know what it looks like. 250 Rand at a bookshop near you. It's entitled In Search of Who We Are, and yes, it is a novel. But most of the talking is going to be done by Muhammad Yusuf and not by me. I will just ask the stupid questions. But just to sort of introduce the book to you, if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, perhaps we can describe it as a parable. It talks about the journey of a young man trying to find himself in a world that is about to change. I'll put it that way. And without further ado, I'm going to put all the tough questions to Muhammad Yusuf. But welcome to your book launch. It's a beautiful thing when your first book comes out. It's a wonderful experience. I hope you're enjoying it.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yeah, thank you very much for that introduction. Yeah, it's really very humbling for me to be here. I think my book starts off with a opening to say that gratitude is our way of beginning things. Obviously, we begin with praising the Creator, and then I think we express our gratitude for Him, for the people around us, and for those that He determined to share our lives. I know everyone's very busy. We live in a very busy world of hustle bustle, and I really appreciate everyone taking out some time from their very busy lives to spend some time here on the launch of my book. Thank you very much.
Right, Muhammad Yusuf, let's get to the hard yards, the tough questions. What inspired you from day one to write a novel? Because to get a novel published is one of the most difficult things on the face of this earth. Paying your taxes and writing a novel are the two of the difficult things. But what inspired you, and what got inside your head to make you go on this journey?
Yeah, you know, the story of this novel might be a story that's as interesting or as long as Kanu's journey. I actually wrote this book in like the early 2000s. I brought a prop along. This is the first draft of the book. It was called Who We Are. And then that's my handwritten chapters. So that's how the book originally started, right. Chapter by chapter.
You actually kept it. You didn't let it publish and throw it all away.
No ways.
All right.
I initially tried to get the book published in the New South Africa. The reason I written the book, maybe I should get to that. Obviously, I also came into the New South Africa with a lot of optimism. Having been active in politics, believing in the principles of the Freedom Charter and so on and so on. Obviously, once 1994 came, everybody felt that, you know, things are in good hands now. We can go on and do whatever we have to do with our lives, our careers and so on. And I basically got out of politics. But I think one thing that was clear to me is that a lot of the collective principles that had been enshrined in the Freedom Charter had been abandoned in 1994 in order to keep or to get the political situation sorted out. At the time, I felt that basically this would not lead to a good end, basically, and for the simple reason that in the liberal secular system, unfortunately, we exist primarily as economic units rather than as human beings. So if you look at our constitution, we have the right to shelter, we have the right to food, we have a lot of rights. But these rights are all conditional, and I mean, unfortunately, in the society we live in, the thing that determines the right is basically to have some money and able to fulfill that right. So you can be homeless, although you have a right to home, but you also need money to access that right, because you've got to go to the Constitutional Court to see the right. So everything moves and everything flows with money. Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, you know, we know that people are not things. And people cannot be used, abused, so that other people get things. I don't think this is a very healthy way for human society to evolve. I think so this is why I wrote the book. And you know, obviously I looked at political systems and I looked at finding some answers. And then I came across two quotes. I think the one quote was by Voltaire. He said, "There are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking the root." I later came across another version of that quote, an earlier version by Rumi. And Rumi said, "Perhaps you are searching for in the branches for what can only be found in the root." I would just like to comment on those two quotes. From the Eastern perspective, very peaceful, very tranquil. From the Western perspective, very violent and very brutal in the language, right? So even the way we express ourselves in the modern culture is in modern society is a reflection of this culture, what we're surrounded with, and how we tend to identify ourselves. I think one of the main things for me was to get into you got to start at the beginning. So if you want to know the story of this country, everything is tainted by the legacy of empire and colonialism. So to get to the beginning, you got to get to a time before that situation arose. This place, I mean, I did some research, obviously. I found a very interesting book, I think at UWC, that detailed the diary entries of every ship that had docked on the South African coast prior to Jan van Riebeeck. I mean, this was eye-opening for me, because we are under the impression 3 ships came, and I mean, we now know that there were at least 3 attempted invasions prior to 1652. I think 2 by the British and 1 by the Dutch. There was a long history of trade that was going on, so they never came to a place where there was no infrastructure. When they came to get fruits and vegetables, who were they trading with? There were people here, there was a society here, there was life here, there was philosophy here, there was religion here, there was culture here, there was compassion here, there was love here, there was humanity here. This was not an untamed, savage, barbaric land that the Western civilization came to uplift. In fact, quite the opposite. We find now that they've removed our humanity and we are now things. Sorry, was that a bit long?
No, it's all right. You make my job a lot easier. But let's get to the book, because where you've situated it tags on with what you've just said, because the book is set in pre-colonial times, and that's what I find interesting. And you've got a pre-colonial character called Kanu, who is on a search, I'll put it that way. He has to give his child a name, but in your book, to give a child a name, you have to go to the mountain, and the name has to come to the parent, as opposed to the parent inventing or thinking of a name for their child or their son. So I think you've been very clever in terms of putting it in a pre-colonial context. But tell us something about Kanu, his wife, and the world that you encounter, that you bring to us in your book. A very pure, very innocent one, although you do say in one of your paragraphs that Kanu is on the beach and he sees shadows on the horizon, which are the ships of the Portuguese waiting to come to Africa. Just to sort of give us more of the sort of the landscape that you inhabit.
Okay, look, the one thing I definitely didn't want to do is kind of have this noble, savage imagery of like paradise here. This wasn't it. There was political struggles, there were issues. I think basically Kanu also going through his life alienated from his own society. It tells you this society was not paradise. It was difficult. There were power plays. There were people with agendas, much as it is today. I think for him also, going through the journey, he's also got to determine what is he going to be true to, the external world or the inner reality, which basically is meant to guide every human being. I think also now, me from a Muslim perspective, I believe in this concept called the fitra, that basically within every human being, there's a pure, like every child who's born is born pure. They're like a focus of awareness, but they're not separated. They haven't separated themselves from this general consciousness of everybody. They have like a true kind of unity. So every one of us have already experienced our fitra. We may have forgotten it, but it's there. And this is the thing that we have to spend our lives through our social conditioning, the media, the family, the friends, whatever, they put all these things on us, and basically our job is to basically work through all that, get back to that kind of pure thing. So I think basically, you know, this inner state of the fitra, this is the deepest level of culture. You need an outer state, like a political state, that will resonate with your inner state. This is when your society starts to work, when there's cohesion, when people are on a path. And I think there are some civilizations today that have got that. Back to Kanu. So Kanu is coming in. I've had him as the outsider type character, because I think to some degree we can all identify with that, because we live in a society of alienation, unfortunately. Whereas for him it's the exception. It seems to be the norm in like modern Western society. So you kind of can relate to him. I think basically he's also defined sorry, the other thing about the name, I think one of the things that's also lost in modern society is the ritualistic aspect of life. And then what are rituals actually? I think if you go into all traditions, whether it's a Christian tradition, Muslim tradition, Hindu tradition, any religious, even African tradition, these things are very rich with rituals and symbolism. And the rituals are so important because the rituals keep reinforcing your sense of identity, your sense of unity, your sense of who you are. You know, at the end of the day, every human being who's born, no one is born in a vacuum. No one is floating out there. Every human being is somebody. Every human being today, you can read my next book basically to find this out, but we all originate from a single human ancestral pair. Every one of us have a chain that goes from us all the way back to them. We are a point on a line. We are not individuals. This individualism that's here, it's a temporary thing. It's an ephemeral thing. It's like a quark coming out of the quantum field and disappearing again. You have no solidity. You're not somebody. You're not building something. You're not part of a great continuum going through time. You're just a person here to be happy. Like, what is this? Where does this come from? We need to be serious about what life is. I think this is what Kanu has to now discover. Obviously, it's not to say that you must live a joyless life. But I think when you find your purpose and you realize who you are and you immerse yourself authentically into your environment, this is basically what you can discover, who you are, and you can live to your best.
Now, let me just say that the book is very readable. It doesn't get as philosophical as Muhammad Yusuf is getting at the moment, so no, don't be worried. You're not going to get weird philosophical theories thrown at you. It's a novel. It is accessible, and it is eminently readable from chapter to chapter. The interesting thing about Kanu, as you've been saying, nobody lives in a vacuum. Comment on the fact that although Kanu is, to all intents and purposes, an outlaw, he is still part of a group, he's still part of a clan, and he still has his friends. He's still part of other people.
So basically, now this is basically how do you react as the outsider when things are not as you like them. So what he doesn't do is he doesn't complain about his people, how useless they are, how corrupt they are, how there should be better people there. I'm sure everybody knows what we're talking about. If you're on WhatsApp, you know about this complaining and moaning. He doesn't do that. He looks at what the actual issue is. He identifies the problem, and then he tries to go to the source of the problem and solve the problem. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You got to analyze the problem correctly. But if you don't analyze the problem correctly, you just perpetuate it, unfortunately. So I think what he does is he wants it to work. He's got a love for his people, despite being at odds with where they are right now. But he has a deeper love that basically transcends that moment, because he understands that he's an expression, a manifestation of them. He's an extension and an expansion of them. And he doesn't cut himself off from his people. Rather, he tries to bring the solution to his people. And you know, the concept of friendship is there. Like, no one goes through this journey of life alone. We to a degree, like the people that share our lives sort of enable us to become the people that we are. So like even me here writing this book, I mean, it's not something I did alone. Like the way you're talking about the philosophical stuff, I'm very used to that. You know, if my wife tells me I'm going to buy a dress, I'll be telling her, she'll be listening half an hour later to how the British took the textile industry in India from 3% of global GDP, from 25%, you know. So, but I think, you know, one of the things that also shows in the book that everything is really connected. Nothing is isolated. Everything works in systems. Everything is connected to each other. We are connected to each other.
Another thing that comes out of your book is it's not a male universe. I think we need to put that out there. Kanu has got a wife, and she also plays a very critical role in the book because she's almost a foil to what he goes through, because she is the one rock in his life, the one stable essence, as it were. Tell us more about that part.
Well, you know, again, here I got to go back to my my Islamic beliefs. That, you know, everyone, every being in this universe, let me not even make it a human thing. Everything that's been created is created with a form and a function and a purpose. it's important to know what the form and the function and the purpose is in order for the thing to fulfill its duty or what it's meant to be, right? I think also, like I'm going to just divert a bit, if you look at the relationship to the earth, which I think is a very primal relationship, like if you look at the Judeo-Christian value system, on which Western civilization really is built, they can be secular now, but all the edifices of culture, knowledge, and learning is built on the church. And I mean, this is what brought the technological advances. However, if you look at the origin story, for example, of Adam and Eve, where Eve was responsible for Adam being kicked out of heaven, and basically the earth is a terrible punishment and a torture, and men has to toil, and women have to suffer in childbirth, and all this, and this is a very terrible place. I think the Quranic perspective is a bit different. Before God created human beings, he said to the angels, I'm about to create the Khalifa fil Ard, which means he was already man was already appointed to be on earth. I think the other element is we don't have the original sin. What we have is the original forgiveness. So he ate the apple, and Eve ate the apple. There was no blaming the woman. They were both responsible. And then this thing had to happen so that the Creator could teach them how to ask for forgiveness. Then when they asked for forgiveness, he said, right, go do your job, go to the earth. So I think this whole narrative is very different. I think just to add to that about the role of the woman, you know, I've often considered this thing about why is paradise under the feet of your mother? And like when Prophet said about who's most important to us, like your mother 3 times and what? Because basically, the man is out there, he's doing what he has to do, he's basically working, struggling in the world, this, that, whatever. He's only able to do all of this because the mother is in the home, taking all the strains and the stresses and the pressures and the burdens. Despite what she's going through, taking the weight and making a happy face for the family so that the children are okay, being self-sacrificing. This is why the mother is so esteemed. So, you know, this whole thing about women's empowerment, like I don't think personally there's any greater job for a society or a community or a people than nurturing the values, the morals, the ethics, and the identities of the next generation. And for us, this is what our women do, and there's no job a man can do that can even come close in importance to that. So this is the issue, to show that she's the
yeah.
Sorry.
And of course, the novel is about the next generation because Kana's focus is getting his son a name by going up the mountain. And what seems to come out of this is the fact that Kana wants his son to go through the rituals. He wants his son to know where he comes from. But he, like his son, doesn't quite know where his son has to go to, but he's not going to be satisfied until the next generation is grounded in the past to go towards the future.
Yeah, I think that's important. You know, I think maybe this is not very healthy, but we live in a world where everything is planned out, every step is done. You know, when you said before you start a project, you got all the steps planned out. I think they were more authentic, more organic, more living in tune with who they were. I think basically when you're walking down a mountain path, you can't decide whether you're going to go left or right at the path that you don't know that's occurring, that's coming ahead. You know what I'm saying? So you got to take life, like as a philosopher said, life is fired at you point blank. Whether you're ready or not, you got to handle what it throws at you, basically. I think, you know, this is also, it's not a bad thing. This is a good thing. You know, at the end of the day, for Kanu, this going into nature, this going into himself, is taking him away from social convention. Mm-hmm. And so when critical decisions had to be made, like people would withdraw themselves a little bit, find themselves, immerse themselves in nature, find God, the Great Spirit, whatever you want to call him, the creator of the heavens and the earth, commune basically, be in touch with reality. And then basically come to your decision. And at the end of the day, what it does show you, though, if you go through the book, he's the one who chooses the name. He does choose the name.
Yeah.
But the name he chooses is a name that only came to him because he went into himself. Had he sat in his village, that name wouldn't have come. It was this process of communing with yourself. I think this is a critical element of human beings that, look, I won't say it's totally lost. I know, like, my wife loves to run. I think running is a kind of doing that. Just being like with yourself. So people, like it's a basic human need. Everybody needs to do this. Everybody needs to reflect. Yeah.
Right, and of course, the book, it's located somewhere here. It's a book of texture as well. So texturally, I suppose we could say it's African in nature, although it's universal in its philosophy. And of course, it doesn't preach. It doesn't preach. But tell us something about how you thought about creating the texture of the book and locating it kind of in the Transkei. To me, it sounds like it was in the Transkei, but obviously it's your own, the landscape of your imagination. That's what comes to me.
Okay, to me, really, the landscape, you know, I used to sit, when I found out that Church Square used to be a hippopotamus hole, this blew my mind. Like, I was like, wow, this is like cool. So I sit on Signal Hill, I would look down over Table Mountain, and I wonder what this place looked like before any buildings were here. And you can see herds of gazelle there and whatever. I mean, that was something cool for me. So I think that was a nice setting. I had to create a place. You know, I think also when you're writing a book like this, it's very difficult, and it's a fine line between, as you say, being preachy or whatever, and also like being corny, right? It's like just like too cliched or whatever. I'm glad you think I kept that balance, but I must say, you know, this book started out at 53,000 words. It ended up at about 40,000. So I think I needed to just like edit it very tightly. But I think I didn't want to lose that kind of, I had a lot more about nature and like descriptions of nature. So I had to cut a lot of it out because you want to still make it readable. But I really wanted people to be in that kind of space, man, in that kind of, in the mountain with the guy, you know. So yeah, I'm glad that you feel it works. I hope other people do as well.
Okay, at this stage of the proceedings, I'm getting very boring with the questions. So if anybody here this evening has got anything that they would like to address to Muhammad Yusuf, you can address them actually directly to him, and I can sit and fall asleep. That will be all right. So if you've got a question, or even a comment, even a criticism, you want to stand on your head, now is the time.
There we go. Salima, you've got the mic.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I just want to first say congratulations on publishing the book, mashallah. Maybe I can just ask if you have any advice for anybody that wants to put pen to paper and start writing. Because I think a lot of people think, oh, I'd love to write a book, but they don't know how to actually start. So if you have any advice for aspiring writers, that would be appreciated.
Thank you very much. I'm going to tell you a long story now, right? I wrote this book I told you, around 2000. I took it to an editor in Joburg. She was a white lady, very nice lady. I told her, tighten this thing up for me, make it readable, whatever. She came back. I was like, okay, now who do you suggest I send it to for publishing? She's like, you know, it's a nice book. It's like, kind of reminds me of Alice in Wonderland. So now this, I didn't know if it was a compliment or insult, right? Because like Alice in Wonderland is a brilliant critique of modern society. Or the contradictions of society. And at the same time, I thought, you know, if you think that black people living before colonialism were like the Mad Hatter and the White Rabbit, that's a bit scary place you're coming from. She told me that I should approach some publishing companies overseas. I didn't do that. I just let the book lie. And then about 3 years ago or 2 years ago, a friend of mine who was having, who produces stuff for the SABC, needed some ideas. He said, you know, you got some ideas to commission the book. Then I gave him the book. He read the book. He's like, no, you should get this published. So I think maybe the time had changed, right? The publishing scene had changed. And then I did it. What I will say, if you want to write, you can, you know, my philosophy and the writing school I come from is the writing school of Steve Biko. I write what I like. You write what you like. You write what's true. You write your authentic voice. I mean, I'm not, like, I don't know if this will be a commercial success, if it's like the other one with 2 initials, JK. I mean, I don't think it will get to that.
MY is cool.
But I mean, I think, you know, we just need our voices to be out there. It was very, very difficult to get your stuff published before. I won't lie. In fact, you know, I wrote a script for Mnet. They were also commissioning stuff. They told me a great script. But like, you know, it's like a love story between a black man and a white woman in like 1992. It's not the time. So, I mean, I was also writing about some controversial stuff because I want to reflect society. Today, obviously, it's no big deal to write that. Things have changed, but I think that the important thing for you or for me to say is, I say be true to yourself, write with your own voice, and speak your truth.
Thank you for that question. Shamima, I see you're really engaged and you know, you've got, you know, you have Shamima's undivided attention, you know. So, Shamima, just share some of your thoughts with us, please.
I haven't read the book yet, and so I don't really know what questions to ask. Maybe the next book I will be able to ask something about this book.
There we go. So, Shamima is going to be reading the book, and then
Look, we have given a bit of a hard task when you haven't read a book to ask questions about it. It's a journalistic no-no, but we're just doing things back to front this evening just because we can.
Joanne, you are author. This is Joanne. She's an author. She's quite passionate about getting books out there. She supports lots of budding authors. And here at Awqaf, we're very passionate about books and encouraging the production, the publication of books. And we've also been attending the Cape Flats Book Festival. And Joanna just fresh off
Oh, that's a great festival, by the way, the Cape Flats Book, yeah.
We were there. So maybe Joanne can just give us some input, some of her thoughts on the discourse that Mr. Minty has shared. He was in your class or your workshop, you know, so please.
Well, it's a real honor to be here, and congratulations on the publication of your book. Yes, I met Mr. Minty at the Cape Flats Book Festival.
Call him MY.
Sorry? MY, yeah, not JK, MY. And I was running a session called Our Stories Matter. And I was in conversation with Karina Surek, who's an independent publisher in Cape Town. And we were talking about why our stories matter, our collective stories. And then something interesting happened in this session. We invited the audience way before question time to share their stories. And their stories were much more interesting than what we were sharing as the people who were supposed to be providing the talk. And that's how we met. Mr. Minty MY was one of the people who began to share his story. And there were many wonderful people, but for me that was so important because there are so many fantastic stories, and there are fantastic stories that we haven't heard. The stories of the Cape Flats, the stories of forced removal, the stories of the emotions of all of those issues that were just never told. And for me, that was a great privilege to meet you then and to meet other people who were sharing in our group about their stories. So I haven't read the book either, but I have a copy. I have my own copy, and I will read it. I'm going to put it on Facebook, so I need a selfie or a picture. And I would love to know more about your project and also what your next book is going to be, because you write one book, and then you've got to move on from there. So those would be my questions.
So first, I would really like
Thank you so much.
I would really like to thank Joanne for coming through. You know, for a person who's basically going into the writing industry, never having had anything published, to get like a real writer to read your stuff, I mean, it means so much. And then Hasanain did tell me Joanne's coming. I was like, yes, man. So like a real writer liked my book. But now you tell me you haven't read it yet. Now I'm worried again, basically. So I'll wait for your feedback. No, I think, you know, the workshop that we had at the Cape Flats was so important, basically. I think Joanne who's someone who's been in the industry. I think it seems like she's on a mission to actually find voices. Because, you know, what is life? Like this whole life, from Adam till the day of judgment, is just one big story. God is telling the story. We all a story. The thing with us is we have the opportunity to write our own role in the story. You can be whoever you want to be in the story. Human beings love stories. This is what we are. We're nothing but a collection of stories. I think we must remember that again. We're not 30-second TikTok videos. We need to go back to our stories. Thank you, Joanne. Really appreciate it.
Right, there's a question there in the corner. Okay, yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Mohammed Menti. So my question is, from what age or maturity do you think the book can be appreciated from?
Your age.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad Manti. Appreciate your question. The book, I think, basically you're old enough. Huh? Look, I promise you, the book is not it's not complex to the way like how we're speaking now. I don't know if this is very complicated.
There's no X stuff in it.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be rated.
No. It's a simple story. It's a nice story. There might be a bit of hugging and kissing. That's about the way it is, basically. There's a little bit of philosophy. There's like one and a half page of like hard philosophy that I had to put in. 1.5 page.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hasanain is forcing me, okay? So I listened to your talk. I've opened my own YouTube channel about 3-4 months ago, and everything you are talking about is on my YouTube channel. And I felt myself sitting there. I felt myself inside of what you were saying, because like you said, nobody is an island. What we experience as a community, we experience as a whole. And the stories that you are talking about that everybody has, if we look at stories, like my very first video says, we have our stories. Some of them are happy, wondering, and some of them are sad. Unfortunately, we have them. But how to deal with those things? And I think I get from your book that you have those things in there as well, how they deal with the troubles they're going through, how the wife supports. I haven't read the book yet. How the wife supports, but the way you are so passionate, living in that book, getting it out there, it was really, I sat really glued. And I appreciate and congratulate you for your, like they say, the first one leads to the second. So inshallah, we're waiting for the second one to come.
No, shukran very much for your kind words.
No
I really
pressure.
appreciate it. Now look, I've thought about the second one, and there's a lot of options. I was thinking of rewriting this whole book in 2023. Like, as he's walking home, he's coming home in the car. Instead of being engaged with nature, he's listening to the radio and he's distracted, he's outside of his own. So I think this would be a very interesting way to approach it. The other thing I thought about is I can make like a trilogy at different points. Like I think one of the critical elements in South African history, which we don't even, like most people don't even know about, is the Xhosa Wars, right? 9 Xhosa Wars across 100 years. The longest defense to the colonial project on this continent happened here in South Africa. The Xhosas fought them for 100 years, but at the end, the logistical, military power of the British Empire was just too strong, and they collapsed. But this is the people that this country is made of. These are courageous, honorable, noble people, basically. Apartheid basically has destroyed everybody. White, black, Indian, everybody. We are all distorted. We need to go back, fitra, human being, ummah, ubuntu, this kind of thing. Let's make humanity at the center of our society. Let the economics serve the human beings. Let the human beings not serve the economics. We got things upside down. We need to go back to our roots, our cultural roots.
Assalamu alaikum. Just, in your character development, how do you maintain the, let's call it the specific traits of a specific character and not allow it to be tainted by your own perceptions of things?
Look, that's a very good technical question, basically. I'm a kind of writer, to be honest with you. I write on gut. I write on instinct. I go there, like how I wrote this book. I wrote the first 2 chapters. I sat with it for 8 months, and then in month 9, I just started writing. And by the end of month 10, this book was written. But I think basically, you got to give your character an internal life. You got to give your character a psychology. So you got to give your character. You have to know what motivates your character, what he's afraid of. You got to know this character like you know yourself. And then you got to put him into a situation, and he's got to act true to his nature. I think this is like the books I enjoy. Like the books I really love reading, like Dostoevsky, like the Russian novelists. For me, there's nobody quite like them. Basically, they're cool. But like, who has time to reach like 600 pages these days, right? So you got to condense that. In a way, you can't Like if you're reading like a long War and Peace, you're building up your character by basically creating incidents in his life and this and that. Here you can't do that, right? It's like all vibes. You've got to create vibes. I don't know how to put it basically. Like a feel around the character, like who he is. I don't know.
Okay, we have one more here from Umar from Muslim Views. He's got a question.
Salam, brother. Salam, brother. Nice meeting you. Just a question. Being Muslim, how did being a practicing Muslim shape you in writing this book? What was your reference background? What makes you, what is the soul of this book? What is the crux? What is the message of this book?
Yeah, basically the message of this book is you're not here for yourself. You're here to be of service to people around you. You're here to be of service to this planet around you and the environment around you. Every one of us is a guardian and a caretaker of everyone else and everything around us. We need to take this responsibility. We can't keep living in a society where everybody has a beautiful yard, but outside the rubbish is lying in the streets. It can't be like this. We need to take ownership of our community. You know, it's kind of like the state has replaced this community. Because, you know, in the old days, if you needed something, you're asking your neighbors. Today, you phone in the municipality. So, I mean, it's good, it makes life convenient, but like, I think at the end of the day, as a Muslim, we know we're here for a short period of time. No bad thing happens to us. As our Prophet said, you know, it's a hadith I like to say, I think they've heard it a lot in the last few days, that the affair of the believer is indeed wondrous. When affliction affalls him, he is patient. When good things when good things come to him, he is grateful. Both of these are good for him. At the end of the day, what is this life? This life is a production process. What's the product? You the product. Who determines what the product will be at the end of the day? You determine it. This life is a manifestation of your mind and who you want to become around here. Everything and everybody around here is telling you no. You this, you that, jump into this box, get into that, you fall in line and you do that. No, I don't believe in that. Everybody here is an authentic, original human being, a mixture of DNA and experiences that have never been repeated and will never be repeated. You are unique. Don't make yourself like everybody else. This is ludicrous. This only is good for people who want to sell you stuff so that they can model their product for you. You know, a consumer society is a terrible thing, basically, man, because at the end of the day, it steals cultures, it steals people, it steals humanity, it steals community, and I'm talking about the intangibles. I'm not even talking about the material losses to people, just about who we are as a people. And at the end of the day, you know, there's a new, sorry, I'm just going to, is it questions? Can I go on a bit? I'm just going to divert from this.
No, you can go on for a while because after this you have to sign books.
Right. There are three political theories that have emerged in modernism. You have communism, which has failed as it's been implemented. You have liberalism. Communism is built around the commune or the collective as a whole. Then you had liberalism, which is built around the individual. It doesn't work. It's not working in the West. It's not working here. Then you have nationalism, which is built around the concept of the nation state, like a kind of blind patriotism. This is very unhealthy. So I think in Russia, a philosopher by the name of Alexander Dugin is developing the fourth political theory. And what this theory deals on, how do you organize your society? And they come into this thing that you organize your society on the intangible of a people. And what constitutes a people? Their culture, their habits, their dress, their morality. You look at Russia, you've got Islam, you've got Buddhism, you've got Orthodox Christianity, you've got Judaism. But their peopleness transcends all of that. Because these are common human values. These occur in every traditional religion. The sacredness of marriage, the family, your neighbors and your obligation to your neighbors. You know, if you're Muslim, I don't know if you know this hadith. You have such obligation to your neighbors that someone said that, you know, The next thing I thought that Allah was going to say that the neighbors must inherit from you. This is what the neighbors are to you. And who's your neighbors? 40 houses in every direction. Not just the people who live next to you. What is this telling you? You're meant to live as a community and as a society. We cannot live as individuals. You know, I'm a very individual person. We writers, we go into our own world and people don't see us for a long time. But I think we need to bring this thing, a community back. And what do you build a community around? It's religion. Religion is one good thing. But we're a community of people who love books. You can have a community of people who love football. But we just have to be together as people. And you know, I think in the West, they push productivity, efficiency, all these kind of things. You know, this glorification of working all the time, I don't think it's normal, basically. That's like a con. What we're doing now, talking to each other, reaching, this is what it is to be a human being. Working at a day, yeah.
Muhammad Yusuf, MY, we're going to deal with one more comment, and then I've been fed, which is a sign we have to come to a close. And one more comment, and then it's, as I say, in the classics, time for you to sign books and be famous.
Thank you.
Now, every time I listen to you, and I think those who know better, hence they didn't ask, like the writers and so on, because they know that before you can actually ask, you need to have gone through the book. None of us went through the book. But every time I listen to you talk, and I think that's why Brother Shafiq somewhere said it's not philosophical. Because every time we hear you speak, though, you're on a different level as to what the book sort of, when Shafiq Morton explains it. And my question basically is, why did you choose fiction over a sort of a real historical writing, like Shafiq Morton's book, for example, on Twangur and so on? Because when you speak, there's a side that seems to me that you really want to bring out, and I'm wondering whether in the passion that you bring it out with, when you speak, will it come out in the story? The title, I think, gives that idea, but will the story bring out the many values that you seem to talk about, but more importantly, speaking about Africa, where it was pre-colonial, it's a beautiful place, but is the story going to give us those sort of perceptions?
Okay, I love that question. Thank you very much. Great question. Okay, basically, I will say about the story that the story, it operates on many, many levels. A child of 14 or 15 can read it and get a nice story about a guy living in the past and his family, this, that, and the other. But it's a story that basically makes you ask your own questions. So depending on where you at, that's where you're going to get the story, right? I think that's the one element. I think that the next thing is, books that Uncle Shafiq has written, and when I found out Islam was in the Western Cape, 11 years after Jan van Riebeeck, my mind was blown. This is wow, right? So this work is so important and so critical, and it must be done. Now, you're getting into historiography, right? Because history also is what is history? Who determines it? But in the period I wanted to write, there's very little actual evidence. So I didn't want to take what I have, and then, because originally I wanted to write the actual thing about actual people and base it on the actual tribes and so on. But I didn't want to pass off what I have as taking history and distorting it and then presenting it as something that it really isn't, because we don't know. We don't know. But I think that the purpose of history is to get to know, there's three things that make culture: language, history, and the kind of identity that comes from it. We don't have the history. We're even losing the language. We have to go back to our culture. The function of history is to act as a bonding mechanism. The function of a shared history is so that people can bond over what they've shared together in the past. We know what the value system was in the big picture. We don't know the specifics, but I think fiction can get that underpinnings of culture which might not be there in fact, but you can get that over, and I think Uncle Shafiq said it very well. It's like a parable, right? If you read religious scripture, like the Quran, for example, on one level, it's so simple. It's very easy. You take, for example, Surah Al-Ikhlas. Say He is Allah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, say He is Allah, the one and only, the absolute, eternal, He begetteth not, nor is He begotten, and there is none like unto Him. You can take every verse there. You can spend the rest of your life digging into Qul huwallahu ahad, and then you won't finish by the time you die. So, I mean, I'm not obviously comparing my book to the Quran, but I'm saying, like, I like books, or I like to even read, like, if I read like the old Chinese philosophers, like Sun Tzu and these guys, or who's a student of Confucius, you read their stuff, it's so simple. It's so simple, but it's so deep. So good writing is going to tell you who you are. Great question. Shukran.
Right, Yusuf, there's an encore question. Just one more. There we go.
Wa alaikum salam.
That person is saying they read your book and they couldn't put it down.
Family.
Yeah.
Okay, so I
Family.
read the book
No,
and
that's
Promo.
I found it very interesting and I really couldn't put it down. I read it in one go. I neglected my kids during that time and I really enjoyed it. I think that the take home for me in that book was like Kanu went into the mountains to discover stuff and to find answers. I think it's important, like you said, for us, for me as well, to just take time out of my busy day and spend that time with myself and find out. Like you said, it's a rat race and we're like hamsters in a wheel and we don't make that time to figure things out, and there's just so much going on in life and it's just so easy to get caught up. The other thing, the other lesson for me was like, also I wanted to mention that like the Prophet ﷺ, Muhammad ﷺ, used to go into the mountains and that's what he got all his answers. And that was also important, a lesson for me as well. And we really, really need to take time for ourselves, and also it's important to integrate into society. And I'm an introvert, and I think I spent many years being an introvert and not wanting to integrate. And I think now with all that's happening in this world, and after reading your book as well, I think that that's an important lesson for all of us. The other thing I just wanted to find out was that Kanu himself was a very complex character, and you could see that you really immersed yourself in him, and it was so nice how you could actually put yourself in his shoes with so many experiences that he went through. So I would like to know from you, like, what is it about you in your personal life? Obviously, there must have been something in your personal life that made you write this book, that you wanted to pass on something into Kanu's character. So what is the link between the two?
Look, I'll say basically, to be honest with you, all the characters in the book are different aspects of my own self, right? I would also say, like we are a diaspora community in Africa. I mean, I think this puts us in a very, very unique position to identify and address the issues. If you look back into history, Edward Said was a child of diaspora. You look at Nina Simone, you look at Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, these are all children of diaspora. So for us, we have this vantage point that's just a bit different. For me, as an Indian growing up in South Africa in the Transvaal, this is very challenging, with the predominant values and attitudes of the society as a whole. I mean, I was a bit more revolutionary, shall we say, than the general trend. So for me, it was really an issue of identity. Like, who am I? Like, where do I fit in? So I think that element of Kanu where you don't really fit in, like I was like a bit embarrassed, and like people are suffering and whatever. Like, everyone should be like fighting. Why people have shops and stuff like that? So this kind of thing. But as you go through life and you gain wisdom, you transform into the other people, right? And at the end, you become the old guy on the top of the mountain, right? Because like you've been through that. They say in life, at the end, by the time you reach the end, you've played all the roles. So I think this is to answer your question.
Okay, on that note, thank you everybody for your contributions. Thank you for coming here. MY Muhammad Yusuf will be in the corner there at the table. signing books and carrying on with the discourse. Thank you very much. Congratulations on your book. I'm confident that it's going to do well. And from here on in, everything of the best. And of course, no pressure. We look forward to the second book.
Thank you very much. Once again, I appreciate everyone's time. Hasanain, a special thank you for you and Awqaf and my publishers, Project Justice, and the legend. I really appreciate you coming here to support me, and it really means a lot to me. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy. And I'm in the corner if you're going to have a chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Take it back to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Only a pleasure, mate.